Hello everyone! In this episode, I'll be sharing with you one of my favorite dishes to order at Chinese restaurants, spicy stir-fried white sweet potato noodles, or 香辣炒红薯宽粉. There's a great variety of ingredients in here. It's fragrant and spicy. It's got lots of good texture. It's a party in your mouth, alright? Best part is you can make it any way you want. We'll start with some vegetables. Here I've got carrot and cucumber, 100 grams of cucumber, and 50 grams of carrot. We're going to julienne them. Now, I've got these cute little mini cucumbers, which I bought for making salad, but of course you can use regular cucumbers. It's pretty much the same. We'll set the cucumbers aside, but add a little pinch of salt to them. You'll see why later. Now, we're gonna cut up the carrot in the same way. We're just gonna julienne it. Now, you can use whatever vegetables you like. You can use bamboo shoots. If you like ginger, you can use that. As long as it's not too soft. Something like bean sprouts. It's a little bit soft, but it could still work. It's all up to you. We'll set the carrots aside together with the cucumbers. I've also got some spring onions. I think that's about 50 grams of spring onion. We'll cut that up. Now, we don't need all of it, but it's good to have some extra in handy. Now, you'll see that by adding the salt to the cucumber, we've got some water out. We'll just drain that water so that the vegetables aren't too soggy later. We'll prepare 2 red bird's eye chilies and 40 grams of garlic. We'll smash the garlic and then mince it. There's no need to mince it too finely because we want that nice texture. Now, we're not really going to cook the garlic. We're just going to sprinkle it on top of the dish and then pour some hot oil over it. So it will still have a somewhat raw taste. If you don't like this, you can, of course, just cook the garlic. Now, we'll cut the red bird's eye chilies, but in this case, they're mainly for color. 2 red bird's eye chilies for a whole dish doesn't make it very spicy, but of course, you can add more if you like it more spicy. We'll also prepare 10 grams of dry chilies and 1 tablespoon of Sichuan peppercorns. The dry chilies are a mix of Facing Heaven dry chilies and Thai dry chilies. The Facing Heaven peppers are fragrant, while the Thai spicy ones are, well, more spicy. But of course, feel free to use the mix that suits your taste. We'll use scissors to cut them into little pieces, and then we'll toast them in a wok over low heat. It's important to use low heat because otherwise they might burn. We'll fry until the peppercorns and dry chilies are nice and crispy, and then we'll put them into a mortar and pestle and pound them up. We don't want a fine powder here, something coarse with more texture and aroma. Once you see something like this, you should be good to go. Here are the sweet potato noodles. They weigh 200 grams when dried, so we'll set those aside. Now we're going to prepare some black fungus. That's about 80 grams. We're going to cut each into 3 or 4 pieces. The reason I cut these separately from everything else was because black fungus needs to be cooked. It cannot be eaten raw. So it's for safety reasons. We'll set those aside, and we'll prepare a piece of flank steak, about 200 grams. We'll identify the grain, and then we'll cut it into 3 pieces, just to make it a bit easier to cut into slices of appropriate size. We'll remove the excess fat and silver skin, and then we'll take slices of about 3 millimeters thickness. If you put the steak in the freezer for 1 to 2 hours before cutting it, this is a lot easier. If you don't like beef, of course, you can use whatever you like. You can use pork or chicken, or you could even make it vegetarian. There's our beef, and you can see that the slices are about 3 millimeters thick. They'll be nice and tender later. Now, you don't have to throw away the fat and silver skin. You can cut it up into little pieces. This way, we can fry them together with the other things later to add more beef fragrance to the whole dish. We'll add some water to our beef just to rinse out that myoglobin, and then we'll pour out that water. This here is doubanjiang, and we're gonna need about a big hefty tablespoon of it. We're gonna put it on the cutting board because we need to cut it up with the knife later. But firstly, let's get to marinating the beef. We've got half a teaspoon of salt here, a half teaspoon of sugar, some light soy sauce. That was about a tablespoon. Some dark soy sauce. That was about a teaspoon. And some cornstarch. That was 2 teaspoons. A little pinch of white pepper. And we're gonna add some water to the beef slowly. But before that, let's mix up that marinade. Now, for this dish, we want the beef to be pretty tender, so I'm using a bit more cornstarch and water here. So we'll gradually mix in the water into the meat until it cannot absorb any more water. The more water and cornstarch you can make it absorb, the more tender the beef will be. But don't overdo it. This is good enough. We'll add a little bit of oil just to prevent the beef from sticking together later. And then we'll chop up the doubanjiang with our knife. This is different from the one that you may have seen in other videos. This is one with a coarse texture, so you need to chop it up before you cook it. Otherwise, you'll get a big bite of the fermented beans in your mouth, which is not great. Now we'll heat up some water in the wok. These are the dried white sweet potato noodles. We'll separate them. And then we'll put them into some boiling water. We'll boil them for about 3 minutes. You'll see that they expand a lot when the water's boiling. They've cooked for 3 minutes here, so I'm gonna take them out. Don't cook them for too long because the key thing about sweet potato noodles is they have a nice chewy texture. If you cook them for too long, it loses that chewiness. We'll add in our cut up black fungus, and we'll just let the water boil again. And it's basically good to go once the water's boiling. We'll drain the black fungus into some cold water to stop the cooking process. Drain out the water and turn on your exhaust hood. We'll heat up the wok until it's smoking, and then we'll add some oil. We don't need a whole lot of oil right now. That's about 2 nice tablespoons. Remember, hot wok, cold oil. We'll use the ladle and we'll grease the wok, and then we'll add in our beef. Don't stir the beef immediately. Let it sear in the oil. If you stir it around when the coating hasn't set, the coating will fall right off. We'll ladle on some of that oil, move the top of the beef a little bit. But once the crust is set, we can pretty much stir it up. Take out the beef once it's cooked, but leave the oil in there. We're also going to add in a tablespoon of lard. Lard can absorb more flavor, so it's ideal to use lard. We'll add in that doubanjiang that we chopped up earlier, the hot raw bean paste, as it's sometimes called. But if you don't like lard, feel free to use regular oil. Now, I'm going to add in that chopped up beef fat. That's going to add some more beef fragrance to the dish. It ties everything together, in my personal opinion. Don't waste anything. Now for that chili powder that we ground up earlier, we're going to add half of it into the mixture now, which will improve the redness and the fragrance. We'll add the other half on top for spice and texture. Alright, let's add those sweet potato noodles back into the wok now. And we'll just stir them, coat them in the sauce evenly. And then we'll add in our beef, as well as the black fungus. We'll give everything a nice toss to mix the sauce evenly. We'll add in a bit of black vinegar to balance the taste. That's about 2 teaspoons. A pinch of white pepper. some chicken powder. That was about a half teaspoon. And then a half teaspoon of sugar just to balance the taste. Mix everything together again. Now, I tried to add some sesame seeds here, but accidents happen, so we're going to drain out those extra sesame seeds. Of course, if you don't like sesame seeds, or you are allergic, or any of the sort, feel free to leave them out. And most definitely, you do not need the quantity that ended up in the wok there. But, accidents happen. Now we're gonna drain the noodles, and that other half of the chili powder that we saved, we're gonna sprinkle it all over the top. Let's not waste any of that, shall we? We'll follow up with the chopped up garlic and chilies. Again, if you don't like the garlic to have too raw of a taste, you can fry the garlic instead, and we'll add in some spring onions. Now, I'm not using all of the spring onions, there's too much, so I would say the amount that you actually need for this dish might be about 15 to 20 grams. Alright, we'll come back to the wok now. We've cleaned out the wok. We're gonna add just a little bit of oil to it and let that oil heat up. That's about a tablespoon of oil, maybe a little bit more. And all we need to do now is heat up that oil until about 200 degrees. Once the oil has reached the proper temperature, we can splash this oil on top of our aromatics just to awaken them, alright? That's what we're gonna do now. Watch this. It's gonna smell really good in your kitchen right now. We'll finally finish with the carrots and cucumbers, which just add a refreshing element to the dish, so we don't want to coat them in oil. And the dish is done. You can eat these noodles hot or at room temperature. It's up to you. Those are my spicy stir-fried white sweet potato noodles. I hope you enjoyed this recipe and try making it at home. Thanks for watching.